Houndoom was one of the coolest designs introduced in Generation 2 as a brand new Pokemon. I mean, it's a dark fire type, it has the amazing K9 design, and this Pokemon overall has pretty decent stats. We've got 90 base attack, 110 base special attack, 95 base speed. In fact, all of our stats are pretty good except for that 50 base defense. We still only ranked 54th out of 251 Pokemon with a 500 base stat total, but it's nothing to sneeze at with this Pokemon. However, we are in the slow level up group, which is going to hold this Pokemon back quite a bit as we go through a challenge because it's just not going to gain as many levels as other Pokemon. However, where I think Houndoom really shines compared to a lot of other fire and dark types is that it does have that higher special attack that synergizes pretty well with its level up moveset. It's learning things like Ember, Bite, Feint Attack, Flamethrower, and Crunch, all via level up that are going to be same type moves using that special attack stat. On top of that, it has at least decent coverage with things like Strength, Headbutt. We can get Rock Smash, Sunny Day, Hyper Beam, of course, in the late game. Solar Beam is there to cover things like rock ground types if we need it. Iron Tail could be a physical move, Return could be decent, Shadow Ball might have some niche play here, Mud Slap, Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, of course, Swift and Detect really round out the moveset. And then there are just some moves that are kind of head scratchers here. For some reason, this Pokemon can learn Dream Eater and Nightmare in spite of the fact that it doesn't have any moves that can actually induce sleep. So the only cases where we could use those would be against opponents who use Rest. Still, that could be a strategy in a really key spot. I'm looking at Red Snorlax, for example. Who knows, maybe Dream Eater strats become a play there? Still, we're just gonna have to get into this one and see how it actually goes in a full game solo challenge, but I'm gonna give it just a little bit of help. You see, this Houndoom does get access to egg moves, and one of the egg moves that I find really interesting as we go through a challenge is it can get access to the move Counter. That allows us to effectively return double the damage for any physical attack used against us, and that could help us in a ton of spots, particularly looking at things like Whitney when she's using Rollout, Chuck, of course, if he uses any fighting type move, and even when we get to the end of the game, we might be wanting to use a move like Counter on Lance when he uses Hyper Beam. We'll just have to see how this actually goes and if this one will be possible on minimum battles, or is it going to take a massive amount of grinding to get the job done? Let's get into it and find out. So today, as we step into Professor Ohm's lab, it's time to celebrate Halloween by getting the Houndoom Lilith, requested by a very long-time channel member, Pokemon WWW411 Mark II, who has been supporting the channel for an incredibly long time. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this challenge. Now, we have made this a very special Houndoom, however. We are coming in at level 5 with 0 DVs, but I have added on the move Counter, an egg move that will give us some kind of counterplay against opponents that are using strong physical moves against us. Everything from Karate Chops to Iron Tails to Hyper Beams that might be used in the later parts of the game will all be possible to counter with that move, and that might be all that we need to get through some really tough fights, in spite of the fact that we're going to be trying to do this one on minimum battles. Still, I don't know if the move's actually going to be super useful or not, but we're going to test this one out. Now, very quickly, I want to give a massive thank you to Pokemon WWW411 Mark II, the guy who always provides lots and lots of Pokemon trivia in the chat and comments, for suggesting this run. He has been one of the longest time channel members between both here and RBY Pokemon challenges. In total, he's supported me for nearly 60 months. So when he requested this challenge, I just simply had to say yes, because number one, it was perfectly themed for the season, and number two, he's just been supporting me for so incredibly long. I can't thank him enough. Now, one thing I want to just quickly mention about challenge requests is I'm always willing to take anybody's challenge request. You can pop things down into the comments, or you can go over to my Discord. I'll prioritize, of course, member requests, especially people who are in member tiers that explicitly guarantee that I will do their requests. But if you have a good idea, never feel any hesitation to just share it down below, and I read all of them. Some I will not do because they're not really fitting the channel, but you know, it is what it is. Now, first things first, we have to get into this Rival 1 fight with our Houndoom, and let's just see how this actually goes. Of course, he leads off with the Totodile, and this is a good spot for us to just start going counter since he's only going to use the move Scratch. 2 scratches is all we need to actually just counter him and knock his Pokemon out. Now, I decided between all of the available egg moves to use counter because I think it actually has the most play as we go through the run. We could also learn things like Pursuit or Beat Up or Rage or what have you, but I think counter has the most situations where we're going to see a gym leader using a physical move, and then we can use the counter to directly counteract that. Just on Falkner, we're going to have things like Mud Slap that we can counter. On Bugsy, we can counter his Fury Cutters. On Whitney, we can use it to counter things like Rollout. There are just so many physical types throughout the game that we're going to be dealing with where counter is probably going to be our best move. So I'm going to be keeping this move on the moveset for quite a while, at least with that being my logic. We'll see if it actually works out the way I'm thinking it will. Now, I find this Fire Dark type to be really interesting as we go through the run, of course, because obviously Dark was introduced brand new in Gen 2 and usually doesn't get a ton of great moves, but we get Crunch, which is like the best Dark type move in the entire game, and the Fire type is going to give us a lot of coverage against things that would normally resist the Dark type, so we'll just have to see how this actually goes. But for now, we're ready to get into the first gym and take on Honest Abe. Now, Honest Abe attempt number 1, he's going to lead off with the level 9 Spearow, and I think the best play here is counter. He will peck and do massive damage, but we just counter in one shot there after he crits, and that's how strong this move is going to be. I expect that just about any Pokemon that is not one-hit KO'd by that Spearow could actually win there if it had access to the move counter. And with that, we should have no issues with the God Rod, so let's get straight to Falkner, where he's going to be mud slapping us, but maybe we can still manage to get through. So it's time for our first attempt against Falkner. We are on 0 DVs. This is the weakest possible Houndoom, but let's see if it can actually get through. Now, one thing that you might remember from the Minimum Battles series is I actually used Roar here in order to force the Pidgeotto to come out, since it would use Gust instead of Mud Slap. Here, however, I'm pretty sure his Pidgey is just going to Mud Slap us over and over again, and we would take simply too much damage. So I'm going to try the same strategy. We fail this time on the first turn, but now we do manage to get the Pidgeotto out. We can counter its Gust, doing pretty decent damage. And once that Pokemon goes down, we get to level 8 as the Pidgey comes back out. Ember does about half, and if we can just manage one more Ember, we would win. Unfortunately, we just missed due to all of the Mud Slaps, but that is why the Roar strategy is actually really good here. By forcing out the Pidgeotto, we'll take fewer Mud Slaps before we get to his Ace. So let's try this again. This time we get the Roar to work on turn 1. We can once again counter the Gusts, knocking that one out in 2 hits. We heal with the berry here on the Pidgey, and now we just need to land 2 hits or get a crit, and we win on the second attempt against Falkner. I'm pretty sure that the Ember can also work if we manage to get burns, etc. here, but it's going to be the most consistent to get through that fight by simply using that Roar strat with the counter that we picked up as our egg move in this one. And with that, we're ready to move on in the game and make our way down to Bugsy, where we should have a pretty big advantage, but let's just see how this actually works out in this section. Now, it's always important to note that this is not an optimized speed run by any means. I do not run damage calculators in advance or pre-route these in any sort of way, so I'm going to be learning together with you guys as I go through this, but I do think we're going to have a really easy time in this section, provided that we don't get like bad luck with something like poison. We should be able to find a way through Bugsy pretty easily. The Rival 2 fight is probably the bigger challenge in this section. Before that though, we've clearly scared Kurt down into the well with our Halloween doggo, and we're going to have to beat up all these rockets now to give them the nightmare of Halloween as well. I would expect that we can generally win these fights down here with no difficulty, so let's just make our way straight to the final rocket. And here against Jamesy Proton, we can really just counter. I didn't heal coming into the fight is the only problem, so let's just get a quick heal on so that we have full health and try this one again, because I'm pretty sure with full health we can simply use counter strats to knock this one out. Here he tackles and does pretty decent damage, but we can see that our counter does massive damage back to him, allowing us to get a 2-hit KO when we actually hit it, and we get to level 11 as Kurt finally recovers. He's clearly decided that Houndoom is not as scary as he thought it was, and he's ready to come pet our doggo and send us off to Bugsy's gym. Now in here, I expect to get some really easy victories given that we are a fire type with a same type move. So let's just get through these randos nice and quick and get to Bugsy himself. So first attempt against Bugsy, he's going to lead off with that Metapod, of course. We're just going to go Ember on this one. It's going to be an easy 2-hit KO as we just burn it, and he goes for Harden, which means nothing here. Now he sends out the Scyther, and this is where I think we want to go for the counter. As he builds up Fury Cutter, we're just going to deal more and more damage. The problem is that he managed to still knock me out. I think we need to have a Berry on here in order to get this one to work. So let's just try this one again. So second attempt here, we go for Ember on the Metapod, getting a critical hit to one-shot it. Now he sends out Kakuna this time. We burn it and it goes down in a single hit. Now we get to level 13. We could learn Smog. I'm not going to learn this move. I just don't think it's actually useful. Like, it's inaccurate. It's an incredibly weak poison type move. I think we just have better options in this section of the game. So now we get to the Scyther yet again. I'm actually going to go Ember the first turn, and now let's try to go for counter after that. We survive with 2 HP, and we do manage to knock it out, getting to level 14, and just like that, Bugsy wasn't actually really all that much of a challenge. We might have even gotten just a really bad roll on that previous run, so we'll simply take that. Let's move on now to the rival, and this is where things could be a little bit tough. I think we might need to learn the move Mud Slap or the move Swift in order to get through here, since we have to deal with that Crocodile. I'm going to try this set first though, just to see how it actually goes. So first up, against the rival's Ghastly, I'm going to go for Ember. This is going to be a 2-hit KO, and he just goes Spite, so that's perfectly fine. Now we get the Crocodile, though. I go Ember, it does like nothing. He goes for Rage here, which if he wants to go Rage, I would be totally fine just spamming counter. Unfortunately, after that, he goes into the Water Gun, and we lose. So it's pretty clear we need a different move here if we're going to get through. And I think Swift makes the most sense for damage. I'm going to learn this over Roar right now. Roar, of course, is a TM move. We could always just get that on our moveset later, and I don't think it's really doing anything for us right now. So let's go back into the rival fight with Swift and see how this goes. So this time, once again, we just get the 2-hitter on the Ghastly. Against Crocodile, we can go for Swift, and that did like 9 damage. So this is not looking great. If we leer at it, we might be able to do more damage here. So let's just see what the leer does for us. It's still not great. I think we would need a couple of crits to get through at this point. So that makes me think that Mud Slap strats are the way to go here. We are faster than that Crocodile, and that should, in theory at least, allow us to get the Mud Slap set up first and then knock that Pokemon out. So let's just see if that can work or not. Sure enough, we managed to knock out the Ghastly yet again, and now I'm going to Mud Slap on the Crocodile, hoping that we can start getting some misses here. We get a leer that misses, we get a Water Gun that misses. I'm going to go really hard on the accuracy here, getting its accuracy all the way down. Now we go Swift. It's not like we're doing massive damage, but if he doesn't manage to hit too many Water Guns, we will take that Pokemon down. And now the Zubat just doesn't have any good moves against us. Like, yes, Leech Life is technically super effective, but it's not going to do that much damage. And this appears to be a 3-hit KO as we burn the Zubat, and we simply knock it out after that, getting to level 15. So you're really banking on good accuracy luck with the Mud Slaps, but it is possible to get through there with this Houndoom, even on 0 DVs, the weakest possible version of this Pokemon, and with no optional battles needed. And one of the things I think we're going to find as we go through this run is that the fact that Houndoom has pretty decent speed is going to help it in a lot of spots. For example, we can go for Bite and Headbutt strats at various points in the run in order to just flinch opponents and have that as an additional win condition in otherwise really tough spots. And honestly, that could make all the difference in some of these battles, especially when we start looking really far ahead at things like Chuck's Poliwrath or Claire's Dragons. If we just outspeed and flinch a bunch of times there, we could probably manage a win in what would otherwise be a borderline impossible fight. So we're just going to keep that in mind as we have already picked up the Headbutt TM, but I'm going to avoid learning it for now because I want to see how we do against Whitney with the counter strats. That might be all all that we actually need to get through that Miltank. One thing that I am very disappointed about this Pokemon in is the fact that it does not get access to Dig, in spite of the fact that it's basically based on a dog by design. Like, everybody knows that dogs dig. They dig in the yard, they dig up your flowers, this, that, and the other thing, which is why it makes sense that this Pokemon should learn Dig. But unfortunately, the devs apparently overlooked that simple fact. So we're not going to be able to go Dig strats in this challenge. Instead, we're going to have to just win with the current moves that we have. Or if we got really desperate, we could always try Fire Blast, but I'm going to absolutely save that for a last-ditch effort in this section of the game. Now, I have gotten access to the Machop so that I can have the Goldberry if I need it here, but I'm going to try to avoid that if at all possible and just go in as I am. Let's see if we can actually manage to win against Whitney on the first attempt. So Whitney leads off with her Clefairy. I'm going to go for the Ember here. In spite of the fact that she has higher special defense, we've got higher special attack. I think this is the best play. Here she tries to Metronome Psychic. Good job. The problem is that she metronomes things like Waterfall and Stomp and completely destroys us on the first attempt. Let's try this one again. So we end up getting to the Miltank, but on fairly low health, and we just get knocked out by the rollout. So I think what we need to do is, number one, give access to the Goldberry just so that we have more HP when we actually get to the Miltank. But we're also hoping Clefairy stops using Metronome and getting strong moves here. So this could be a little tough. This time we managed to get through the Clefairy, only taking 3 damage because it mimicked Ember and just hit us with that. So we do manage to get to the Miltank with much better HP. It goes for Stomp here and flinched me. Otherwise, I could have gone for the counter to one-shot the Pokemon, I think. So we just need better luck than that on that Miltank. This time she stomps though, and we simply counter it and one-shot against that Miltank. So as long as we get there on full health, or at least pretty close to full health, and she goes for Stomp, we can actually win. Otherwise, if she uses Rollout once, she will simply take us below half HP. So the second turn of Rollout is just too strong and it just destroys us. There's not really anything that we can do. So that's certainly not a consistent fight, though it is possible on minimum battles with the right kind of luck. I think it's reasonable enough luck to justify the resets there, but it's not something that you're going to be excited about as you're going through a challenge. Still, with that done, we're ready to move on to Morty, where technically we should have a pretty easy time. We resist Ghost and Psychic type moves. The problem is that Nightshade, I believe, just does fixed damage anyway, so we're gonna have to hope that we can actually get the luck to get through here. Still, we won't know until we try, so let's make our way up to Ekritique and let's immediately take on the Kimono Girls first so that we can gain a few extra levels. We're also gonna get access to Bite at level 20, which could be really useful here, so I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind as I go through this section. If we run into any major issues, we might even want to go down to the lighthouse in order to get some extra experience. And even the last Kimono Girl is giving us a little bit of trouble here with her Vaporeon, so I think going to the lighthouse is the best play at this point to stay on minimum battles while getting the XP that we need to get to Bite. We could also try throwing on Headbutt and going for some flinch strats there, but with Bite coming up so soon, I think it's going to be the better move to just learn over our Swift that we have currently, since that's also going to help in Morty's gym. And besides, we should have a really easy time with most of the traders in this section, so I think it's going to be pretty easy to get the level that we need to get there. And sure enough, we managed to get the level we need to get Bite. I'm going to learn it over Swift right here, and now let's just see how that move actually performs on this Pokemon. And after gaining a couple levels, we can come back to the Kimono Girls now with Bite in our move set, and let's just see what this does against this Vaporeon. I'm going to put Bite in the top slot here, and this looks like it might be a 3 or 4 hit KO. It's a 4-hitter, but we get a flinch, and that's all we actually needed to win, thanks to our speed advantage. So that goes from being a really tough fight that would have required a lot of mud slap luck to being something that you get through pretty easily, given that you've got Bite as a same type move. Using our higher special attack stat, it's definitely the best way to go. But now it's time to make our way to Rival 3. In Pokemon Crystal, he must be fought before you can even access Morty's gym, and we can't progress in the game without getting access to Surf outside of battle, so this is the only way to progress. Let's see if we can beat the rival. We come in already faster than the Haunter, fortunately, and we can go for Bite, getting a one-hit KO. That brings out the Croconaw next, where I'm going to just stick with Bite for the chance to flinch. Water Gun does pretty decent damage here, but we are going to survive and get a 3-hitter there, even on 0 DVs. Now, against the Zubat, I think we just stick with Bite. It's our strongest move. It gets a 2-hit KO there, and Magnemite comes out next. A Sonic Boom would knock us out from this level, so I think we're hoping that Ember gets the one-hitter. Fortunately, it does, so we get through just fine. And now we can free the legendary beasts while showing them our legendary Doggo, and it's time to move on in this challenge to Morty's gym. And in theory, this should be one of the easier gyms in the entire run, given that we do have access to the dark type move Bite with the same type attack bonus. I think we're going to crush everything, but let's find out. Sure enough, we destroy everything as we get to level 24, but you'll notice that we do not quite outspeed against the Gengar. When we were here on minimum battles, we did outspeed against that Pokemon, which made this insanely easy. We just needed to spam the Bite the entire way. Here, however, I'm going to try going in with a Quick Claw. Yes, I know we could go for the Mint Berry, but I think I want to save my Mint Berry for when we get to Chuck, since I think his Poliwrath is going to be a much bigger threat to this Pokemon than the Gengar we're about to take on. So let's just see how this goes and see if we can manage to get the luck to not get put to sleep and just knock his Pokemon out. First up, Morty leads off with Ghastly, of course, which is an easy one-hit KO. Out next comes the first Haunter. We Bite it and get the one-hitter as well. Gengar comes out. It goes Shadow Ball, which does like nothing. And then we get the Quick Claw to activate, so we just knock it out in 2 turns. And finally, the Haunter gets just completely wrecked. Morty never stood a chance in this one. We're ready to move on in this challenge. Now the question is, how do we want to progress with this Pokemon? Because we've got to take on either Chuck, Jasmine, or Price. And I think we got to go to Price in this one, because obviously Chuck's fighting type moves are going to be super effective here, which is going to make this one pretty tough. And Jasmine, while we do have some advantage with the fire type, we also have to keep in mind that she uses a lot of status. And if we're not just one-hit KOing there, we could be in bad shape. But basically, I'm thinking that we go Price to Jasmine to Chuck. That means that we'll also take on the entire Rocket hideout right here as we progress in this challenge. And I'll just take this moment to grab all the random items that are available to us in this section of the game. We could even go for detect strats if we really need to in a really key spot. Now, because we are in 0 DVs, our hidden power type is hidden power fighting, and it's the weakest version of hidden power fighting. So there's not really much advantage to using that move, I don't think, in this run. We're almost always going to be better off going for something else. Still, we'll have it in the bag just in case, but I'm far more likely to learn the Sludge Bomb over here after I get through the Rocket hideout than I am to actually learn hidden power fighting in this one. And as usual, we have no problems in this section of the game, so let's just get straight to the final Rocket Executive and see how she actually goes. She's going to lead off with the Arbok, of course, but we're going to outspeed. We can go for Bite. It does nearly half as we get wrapped here, but we get poisoned, which is kind of bad luck. Murkrow comes out next, and I'm debating whether Ember or going for the counter is the better play. Ember appears to be a 3-hitter as we burn this Pokemon. And finally, we get the Gloom. Ember is not a one-hit KO, and the poison takes us down. Still, with no poison, we would have won there, so let's just try this one again, because honestly, it is clearly a winnable fight without that luck. This time, we just managed to 2-hit KO against the Arbok. I'm going to try the counter strat here against Murkrow. We did massive damage when it critical hit me with Peck, and then I knock it out the next turn. And now I don't think Gloom can do anything. Like, it drops acid, but clearly we're just going to win. We get to level 28 as we defeat everything in the Rocket hideout. Now, as I always mention in these ones, I'm just going to use Gyarados to knock out all of these electrodes so that I don't gain any additional experience with my Houndoom, because I want to honestly see if I can manage to beat the game on minimum battles, or at least minimal XP with this Pokemon. And this is the best way that I know to actually test that out. And sure enough, we get all of those electrodes dealt with. Now we can move on, and it's time to try to take on Price. Honestly, Price could be really easy here as long as he is in a reasonable range to knock out. I think Bite's going to be our best play against the first 2 Pokemon, and then Ember on the final Piloswine. But let's see how this actually goes. First up on Price's seal, we're just going to go for Bite. And as it goes Icy Wind and lowers my speed, still we're going to knock it out in just a few hits. Out next comes the Dugong. It outspeeds and goes for a headbutt here. In fact, it looks like we're in a speed tie. So unfortunately, we lose that attempt, but if we still outspeed, we'll have more chance to flinch there, and I think that's what we actually need. This time we get a nice critical hit that flinches the first seal, so we're still faster than the Dugong when we get here. With no damage, we flinch it twice, knocking it out. That brings out the Piloswine, where we can go for Ember here, which does a little less than half. Piloswine did really massive damage with that Fury attack though, like an absurdly large amount of damage. So who knows, maybe we were better off going for counter there. I forget if counter works like it did in Gen 1, where it only counters the last turn of the multi-hit move though. So we're gonna have to test that out a little bit. And unfortunately, the next attempt, we're getting back to the Piloswine, but on much less HP. It hits the Blizzard, but I think Ember will knock it out from this level. Sure enough, it does. So we win on the second attempt, even though we got to the Piloswine with less HP than the first time, thanks to a couple of flinches. So it's definitely not perfectly consistent, but you can beat Price at this level with a Houndoom. And now I think it's time to backtrack to go try to take on Jasmine and just see how she goes, since we're going to at least have super effective moves and resist the steel type. The real question is just, do we one-hit KO against those two Magnemites? I think we probably do, but let's find out if that's actually the case. Still, while I'm actually down here, I'm at least going to test some things out in the gym, because I just kind of want to know how we do against fighting types like what we've got here in Chuck's gym. I'm going to learn the move Headbutt right now over Mud Slap. I actually think this is going to be one of the better plays here. Yes, we're losing the chance to use accuracy strats, but in exchange, we're getting access to another flinching move that's at least neutrally effective against these fighting types. So I think it is the best play. Let's see how we do against the Black Belt Bros. Of course, we've got to take on the Hitmonlee first. We headbutt it. It does massive damage with a jump kick though. It just one-shot me. We're going to need to get a flinch here. This is clearly a two-hit KO. Maybe even we could one-shot with a crit. This time he crashes as he misses, and that allows us to simply knock that Pokemon out. Out next comes the Hitmonchan. We're going to stick with the headbutt strat. It Comet punches, but that's not quite as scary as what we were dealing with the previous Pokemon, so we take down the Black Belt Bros on the second attempt. And here at nearly level 30, it's worth noting that all of our stats would be about 9 points higher at this point if we were running on max DVs. So we would have significantly higher defense, as well as our specials, attack, speed. Everything would be significantly better than what we're currently seeing on this Pokemon if this was a max DVs run. But because it's 0 DVs, we're just significantly weaker in this one. It's also worth noting that I'm not going to use any vitamins in this one, so we're keeping this as the weakest possible Houndoom just to see how it actually pans out. So we could have a lot of situations that look pretty bad here but turn out to not actually be that bad in practice. So take that for what you will. Now, I could learn Feint Attack via level up, but I'm actually going to skip this move. I don't think we actually need it. I think Bite is generally going to be our better play for flinch strats with this Pokemon. And interestingly enough, I have made it to Chuck at this point, and we have to keep in mind that at least with Dynamic Punch, he has a 50-50 chance to miss against our Pokemon. So I think what we need to do is give a Mint Berry to our Houndoom, and I'm just going to try this one time at least before we go back and take on Jasmine. Let's just see if we can manage to get Chuck to punt as he tends to do. Maybe we just need a couple flinches. Now he's going to throw rocks to show that even he could probably beat a fire type Pokemon. We're still going to test this one out. First up on the Primeape, we go for the Headbutt. It does slightly less than half here, but we get a flinch the second turn. So we get through that Pokemon, we're to the Poliwrath, and obviously we outspeed here. The question is about damage. He misses the Dynamic Punch turn 1, and we did 22 damage here. So this would be a 5-hit KO with the Headbutt. We get a flinch turn 2 though. He misses another Dynamic Punch and another. So just like that, we beat Chuck on the first attempt, in spite of the fact that we have a type weakness. That 50-50 all or nothing with the Dynamic Punch is his true Achilles heel. It's one of those decisions in the design choice of Gen 2 that I've personally just found kind of mind-boggling. Like, it's interesting in the one hand that you give these really strong moves with guaranteed status that are 50% accurate in the form of things like Zap Cannon and Dynamic Punch, but at the same time, they're so YOLO that having that be the main move of a gym leader, I feel like is just giving a little too much to the player. I would much rather see Chuck use something like Submission there, where he has an 80% chance to hit you, and he's not really sacrificing that much extra damage. Still, that is what it is. We managed to get through, come back to Jasmine and give her the secret potion, and I think even with the performance enhancing potion that she's giving to her Steelix, we're probably going to be able to get through with Ember strats. But let's see if this actually works out. She leads off, of course, with the Magnemite. We're going to go Ember in this one, and that is a one-hit KO. So after taking that one down, we get to level 31. She sends out the Steelix, and I'm going to try a counter strat here, as it does massive damage with the Rock Throw. We just one-shot there. That brings out the second Magnemite, which gets completely destroyed, and just like that, we managed to get through on minimum battles. Jasmine was a non-factor in this one. So now we have just a bunch of random rockets to beat up on, and once we can get through this section, we'll finally make our way to Claire. So let's just fast forward a little bit. We're going to go first to the Marlboro Man, then to Rival 4, then hopefully we just get to the final executive with no issues. Our biggest issue at this point in the run is just the fact that we have such low defense that we're actually taking pretty decent damage in a lot of cases when they hit us with things like Hyper Fang. So we could actually have some resets here. It's mostly going to be a question of flinch luck, I think. So sure enough, we get to the top of the first part of the tower with no issues. So it's Marlboro Man time. He's going to be coughing and wheezing this whole time, but let's see if Bite just takes these Pokemon down, given that they do have lower special defense. We don't quite get the one-hit KO. Clearly on max DVs, we would be one-shotting here against these coughings, so that's actually kind of bad luck. We did level up here, though, giving us better ranges. The wheezing appears to be a two-hitter, and now we might actually have guaranteed one-hit KOs on these coughings just because we gained that level, and we never missed in spite of the fact that we took a smoke screen. So we easily get through, and now we can move on to rival number 4, which should be a very interesting fight now that he does have a bigger team, but with enough flinches, I think we will get through this one. So Rival 4 attempt number 1 right here. He's going to lead off with the Golbat. I think the only play is to go for either Bite or Headbutt here. I'll go Bite, get the flinch turn 1. We knock it out turn 2 with a Headbutt, so that's perfectly fine. Feraligatr comes out. I'm going to go Headbutt here just because I'm a little low on PP in Bite, and I want to save those bites for specifically that Haunter when we get there. We get a couple flinches, so we do take out Feraligatr just fine. On Sneasel, we can go for the Stab Ember as it goes quick attack on us twice. We still knock that one out. Ember on the Magnemite is a one-hit KO, and now the Haunter, I'm going Bite, and that also gets the one-hitter. So we finish on 7 HP remaining, but we still managed to get the victory on the first attempt. So that's certainly good to see, and now we can get through more randos and then make our way up the second part of the tower. I honestly don't expect any issues with any of these randos in this part of the game, so it's basically just the final executives, and then we can start thinking about Claire, but we'll just have to see how we actually do against the last few of these rocket executives. Now, fortunately, we get to the top of the second part of the tower with no issues. Now we've got to take on the guy who has our doppelganger, his own Houndoom, but we know Headbutt. I think this is going to be pretty easy, but let's find out. He leads off with the Houndour. We Headbutt it and get a one-hit KO. Coughing comes out next. We can just Bite it and KO it in one hit. And now he has his own Houndoom. We go Headbutt, doing pretty good damage. He goes Smog because he has nothing better. And we just get a two-hit KO right there to knock that one out. Very, very easy to get through the end of the rocket section. Now, however, we're only at level 39 because we're in the slow level up group, and we have to go and take on Claire, where all of her Pokemon are going to resist the fire type. Still, maybe our Stab, Bite, or Headbutt is enough to get us through this next section. It's also worth noting that one strategy we could at least try in this section would be to do something like using Sunny Day in order to prevent the Kingdra from doing as much damage with its Surf, at least as a kind of last-ditch effort strategy if nothing else is working and if Surf is just doing massive damage to us. It could be a way to actually progress in in the game. And of course, we're going to get rest in here as well as already having sleep talk in the bag, but I'm going to avoid learning those moves as much as possible just because they're very generic in challenges. Like, it would be something that we at that point would basically be saying, okay, this is just like any other Pokemon in the game, not anything unique or special. So you take that for what you will. Things like rest, sleep talk, attract, etc. I'm only really going to use when I've exhausted all other options, and I think that that's my only way to progress in the game, because otherwise we could just end up with too many situations where every Pokemon is running the exact same thing. Still, if it's the only way to progress at some point, we do at least want to have that option. So we'll go ahead and put that TM in the bag as we move on through this section. I'm also going to pick up a lot of items here, including the iron and proteins, even though I have banned using vitamins in this one, because I want to have those to sell for money. Because technically at this point, if we go around and collect enough items, we can actually afford the TM for Fire Blast if we really need it. Still, I'm going to try to go into the gym just as I am first, and let's see how we do against these dragon types. Now, from the looks of things, we're probably at best getting a 2-hit KO on the Dragonairs here with a flinch in order to actually get through. I think we need to put on the Paralyzed Cure Berry just to have a shot here. And we might even want to look at something like the Black Glasses if this turns out to be kind of a range. But I'm going to get into this and at least try this out one time. Let's see if we can actually manage a win against Claire. Of course, she leads off with the first Dragonair. We go for Bite here. It goes for Surf, which is super effective and does massive damage. Next, we get the Kingdra. We go for Bite, yet again Surf, and we just get wrecked. We're going to need some crazy flinches to get this one to go. Next attempt, we instead get Thunder Wave, and then we can just knock out that first Dragonair. After healing with the Paralyzed Cure Berry, the Surf from the Kingdra takes us all the way down to 3 HP though, so we would need 2 flinches in a row on the Kingdra in order to actually get through. It's certainly not impossible to get multiple flinches here. We get the first flinch and second flinch and third flinch here in the third attempt. We can level up now and learn Flamethrower over Ember. Obviously, it's a massive upgrade, but for this fight, we're just going to stick with the Bite. We get a critical hit that doesn't quite one-hit KO the second Dragonair, and the third Dragonair gets flinched and knocked out the next turn. So we beat Claire in 3 attempts. It wasn't pretty, but it is certainly possible to get through there, in spite of the fact that we're at best getting 2 or 3 hit KO ranges on those Pokemon. But it all comes down to the root of our strategy, which is to be able to flinch our opponents and just take advantage of our massive speed stat in this one. And honestly, I think that's going to be our main strategy for the rest of the run, is just to go for flinching moves and pray in any tough spot. And of course, if we have strong super effective moves against something, we'll just use those to knock those Pokemon out nice and easy. But I just don't expect a whole lot of free wins in the late parts of this run. Still, we've reached the point where we're basically at the league, so we're just going to go and take on Rival 5 and then try our hand at Willy Boy, who should be super easy. Koga, I'm not so sure about, but I think we'll get through just fine. Bruno might be tough in this one. Karen's probably not terrible. And then Lance will just honestly have to see. So for now, we'll make Claire come and give us our badge because it is clearly Halloween here in the Dragon's Den, and they just declared that we have the best Halloween Pokemon. So she just had to give it up to us as we now make our way to the Pokemon League. And honestly, I'm not sure how useful a move like Solar Beam will be in this one, but I'm going to pick it up anyway just to be safe, because that could save us against a water type at some point in the challenge. So I don't think it's going to be completely useless by any means, especially if we have access to Sunny Day with that. That could be our strategy for opponents like Misty coming up, or if we get to Red at the end and we just need a strategy to knock out his Blastoise, Sunny Day plus Solar Beam could be the play there. So we'll just keep that in mind, but for now, I don't think it's going to be a particularly useful move in the next part of the game, so we'll just keep it for the Kanto section instead. So we'll just beat up on one trainer that's blocking the entrance to Victory Road, and then it's time for that rival fight. And I think we've got this one, but let's see if it actually works out. So rival 5 attempt number 1. I'm not fully healed coming into this one, but it may be okay. We're going to go Flamethrower on the Sneasel, which is going to get an easy 1-hit KO. He sends out Feraligatr next. I'm just going to go Bite here. It looks to be a 3-hitter on this Pokemon. We really want a flinch. We did not get it. Still, we do manage to get through. Golbat comes out next. I'm going to go Flamethrower since it's the strongest move I have, but that's going to be a 2-hit KO even with Flamethrower. So we're just going to have to get better luck than that. But maybe we just need 1 flinch on Feraligatr to get through this. So next attempt, we obviously one-shot the Sneasel yet again. We get a flinch on Feraligatr this time, so we get to Golbat with better health. I'll just go for a Bite this time, and he gets a critical hit wing attack to knock me out. I think without the crit, we would have survived. So again, I think this is still worth resetting. And obviously, if we got the flinch, I think we could just go Flamethrower after that to knock that Pokemon out. So let's just try this one again. We get the flinch this time on Golbat, so we knock it out the next turn. He sends out Magneton, which Flamethrower is going to completely destroy. Kadabra comes out. We just go Bite, destroying that Pokemon. And finally, the Haunter never stood a chance against our Bite. How you bite a ghost, I don't know, but it works out. And we easily win on that attempt. So clearly we have all the moves that we need there. We just need like 1 flinch in the battle to actually make it work out. So with that, it's time to just buy a few full restores and make our way into the league. First up though, will attempt number 1. We're going to go for Bite on the Xatu as it just goes quick attack. It's a 2-hit KO, but we easily get through getting to level 43. Slowbro comes out next. We Bite. It goes Amnesia, but that's not going to be enough. We're just knocking it out in 2 hits. Exeggutor, we can go Flamethrower here technically. It's a 1-hit KO. Jinx will just stick with the Flamethrower as well, destroying that Pokemon. And now that brings out Xatu number 2, where we just go Bite. It's going to still be a 2-hit KO as he goes for the max potion, but what can it do? Quick attack? We don't care about that. We get to level 44 after completely destroying Will. So with that, we can now move on to Koga. Let's see if we just keep cruising on minimum battles with this Pokemon. Koga attempt number 1, he leads off with Ariados. We go for the Flamethrower right here, just destroying that Pokemon. Fortress comes out. It's 4 times weak to Flamethrower, so it gets completely wrecked. Muck comes out. It has the lower defense than special defense, but I still think Flamethrower is the play. It's the strongest move that we have available, but that only does like a third-ish. So we're going to need a couple of good hits to get through here as it sludge bombs me. Crobat comes out next, and it outspeeds and goes for the wing attack, knocking me out on the first attempt. So it's pretty clear that we're going to need to get some flinch luck on the Muck, and on the Crobat, we're going to probably have to go for counter. I think that's going to be our best play. This time he misses Toxic, but then he hits it the next turn. We're going to have to just knock that one out after that. Crobat is out. I'm going to go for counter strats here as he double teams. That's clearly a good strategy given that we have been hit by the Toxic, and once he full restores, we're simply going down there. If we can avoid Toxic though, we should have a pretty simple chance of getting through that Pokemon. So we're just going to have to test this out a little bit more. I think any run where we get hit by Toxic, we simply have to reset, but we're basically just going for flinch strats there on that Pokemon. So back to Crobat again. I'm going to go for counter here since we know it's going to wing attack and it gets a critical hit to one-shot me. If we could have survived the crit, we definitely would have one-shot it with the counter though, so I think that is the play, to go for the counter there. It's already faster than us, so we're not giving up priority or anything. So while that's definitely going to be a little bit luck based, I do think that it can work out. This time we get through Muck with no damage taken, so now I'm going to go for the counter on the Crobat. It goes for the Toxic here. Now it goes for wing attack and we do really good damage, but we cannot knock it out before it simply takes us down on the next turn. Back again to Crobat as it goes double team this time. We get a critical hit Flamethrower to just one-shot the Crobat. That was insanely lucky, and now Flamethrower should just destroy the Venomoth. So it's taken 12 attempts to get through Koga. It is possible on minimum battles on 0 DVs with no vitamins, but it's definitely not pretty. That's one of the tougher fights in this entire challenge so far. Now we've made it to Bruno. I think we're going to outspeed things here, so we should be able to get flinches, but let's see how this actually works out. So Bruno attempt number 1. I'm going to headbutt on his Hitmontop, hoping that it flinches. It does not. So now I'm going to go counter to knock it out after it uses Dig. We get to level 45 right there. The Hitmonlee comes out next, it hits high jump kick and we're dead. We're going to need a flinch on the Hitmonlee no matter what. This time we get to the Hitmonlee on full health. It misses the high jump kick and it crashes to the ground. Headbutt is doing its job. Hitmonchan, we cannot avoid the Mach Punch. There's nothing we can do against that, and it does about half to us. So unfortunately, we're going down on the Hitmonchan. It looks like no matter what we do, this is where we might actually have hit a wall on the minimum battles. So essentially what we're trying to go for here is 2 flinches on the first Hitmontop, which then will allow us to knock this Pokemon out with Flamethrower. Then we're going to need to get a flinch or a miss from the Hitmonlee, which is still pretty darn luck based. But then on the Hitmonchan, I'm going to try to go for the counter to 1-hit KO that one. That's going to bring us to the Machamp with not great HP, but that's probably our best shot of getting through this if we're not going to start burning rare candies. And as a slow level up Pokemon, like, we really cannot afford to burn rare candies at this point in the game. Attempt number 99, we're back to Hitmonchan. It hits a normal Mach Punch this time. We one-shot that Pokemon. Onix comes out next. Bite is obviously the play. We get the flinch, so we get an easy 2-hitter there. Machamp is last. We go for Headbutt, it hits Cross Chop, and we lose. And it looks like Headbutt at best will be a 4-hit KO here with the pink bow on. Flamethrower would definitely do more damage, but we wouldn't have the chance to flinch. So we would have to get this Pokemon in a range to actually be able to flinch it in order to get this one to go. So I'm not sure. This one might actually just be impossible to get through with our Pokemon. Now, there is one more strategy that we can try here, which is to try a Sunny Day strat, just to see if it allows us to get 1-hit KOs on both of the Hitmons, at which point we could try to use that to get through. I'm actually going to replace counter with this move to test this out, because I really just want to see if we can make it work or not. I'm also going to learn Detect right now, and I'm going to learn this move over Headbutt, with the logic being that I'll still have Bite in order to flinch things, but what I really want to know is if I can manage to use Sunny Day in order to simply set up Flamethrower and knock everything out from there. So let's test this strategy out and just see if it can work. So turn 1, I will set up Sunny Day here. As the Hitmontop goes underground, we can now Detect to protect from Dig. Flamethrower one-shots the first Pokemon. Hitmonlee comes out, we go Flamethrower, and we do not get the one-hitter with that. So it looks like we would need Fire Blast strats to get through with this. So I'm going to try this one more time with the Charcoal, just because obviously that will power up my Fire-type moves, but otherwise we might have to try a Fire Blast strat here. Now with the Charcoal on, we do 1-hit KO against the Hitmonlee. Hitmonchan goes Mach Punch and critical hits us, but still we might actually have some degree of chance here with this setup. So let's just try this one again. This time we managed to get to the Onix with Sunny Day still up, and that allows us to one-shot that Pokemon. The sunlight fades as we get to the Machamp. Now, it has 5 PP and Cross Chop, but I honestly think we just need to go for Flamethrower and see if it's possible to get a critical hit here to one-shot. Instead, we get the burn, but Cross Chop still one-shots us. He could, of course, also miss there 20% of the time, and that could be the strategy that we actually need to get through. It's also worth noting that we're not quite getting the 1-hit KO on a lot of Pokemon, so the next strategy is actually to add on a stronger move here, and I think Fire Blast is the play. And I'm even going to learn Fire Blast over Bite here, because who knows, we may be able to just get through the next trainer with this current setup. We can relearn a move like Headbutt later on via TM. And here we're really just looking for better ranges with a move, and I think Fire Blast is that move that's going to help us here. So here we'll still stick with Flamethrower on the first 2 Pokemon. Hitmonchan tends to be a little bit more random of whether or not we can 1-hit KO though, so this is where I think Fire Blast comes in. We obviously missed that time, but if we manage to hit the Fire Blast, we should have a pretty decent chance of getting the one-hitter there. Then what I'm interested to see is if Fire Blast is strong enough to 1-hit KO the Onix. If it is, then we should actually have pretty good luck getting to the final Pokemon, and that may be all that we actually need. Again, it's not a guaranteed one-hit KO on the Hitmonlee, but it seems to mostly one-hit with the Flamethrower after we get access to Sunny Day. So we just kind of have to reset for that luck here. Like I said, it's mostly going to one-hit, but sometimes that Pokemon will just barely hold on, in which case it's going to knock us out the next turn, and there's nothing we can really do about that. Hitmonchan, though, this time we hit with Fire Blast and one-shot it. We're going to go for Fire Blast on the Onix, and this does get the one-hit KO. Now Machamp, let's just see what Fire Blast does. It does a lot, and he misses the Cross Chop, allowing us to finally win. That took massive numbers of attempts. We're up to 159 resets now as we get through Bruno, but we have managed to progress in the game. And now I'm just honestly not sure how we will do against Karen, but I'm going to at least test this one out with our current moveset. Let's just see if we can manage to get through. So Karen, attempt number 1. I did not heal coming in. I'm going to detect once here. Now go for Sunny Day as we get Confuse Raid by the Umbreon. But we do manage to hit Fire Blast. After Sunny Day, it's still going to be a 2-hit KO. We managed to knock it out the next turn with Flamethrower, though. That brings out Murkrow. It goes Quick Attack. We hit ourselves in Confusion. That's all that we can do in that first one. We need to actually properly heal before we come in. Let's try this again with actual health on our Pokemon. So Karen, attempt number 2. I'm using Detect to try to avoid the turn 1 Sand Attack that this Pokemon often uses. Unfortunately, we still get Sand Attack turn 2, and we get Confuse Raid turn 3. We're just kind of hoping that her Pokemon generally don't deal very much damage to us, though, in which case we may be able to win still. Here we will Fire Blast on the Murkrow, getting a 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. Houndoom comes out. It goes for the Flamethrower that did pretty decent damage. Our Fire Blast did not do that much, so clearly we're going to need a different move on the moveset. I think we stick with the Flamethrower here, and instead we throw on Headbutt. We could also go for Return, though, here, just since it is going to be quite a bit stronger at this point in the game, and I think that's what we need to be able to get through. Let's test the Return strat just to see. So I will get rid of Fire Blast to learn Return because I just think that's probably our best chance of getting through this, but let's find out. Still, we will set up Sunny Day first and go for Flamethrower on things that are neutrally affected by it, since that should be our best damage output. But this is going to be a 2-hit KO on Umbreon no matter what we do, so Fire Blast is definitely the play there. Murkrow, we're just missing over and over again, but once we do hit, we do get a 1-hit KO there. Houndoom, now we can go Return, which does significantly more damage, and we nearly get a 2-hit KO with the Return strat, so we're just going to need to reset a little bit for better luck here. I think we need a run where we don't get a Sand Attack from this first Umbreon in order to actually get through. This time we do knock out the Houndoom. We've made it to Gengar. We hit the Flamethrower, it goes Curse, that's perfectly fine. Now we just have to actually hit on this Vileplume. We've got 2 accuracy drops, we miss, and we lose. If we didn't have those 2 accuracy drops, though, we definitely could have won there. So this Umbreon is really the main problem we really want to see. Otherwise, we just need to get the luck not to miss any of our accuracy rolls. It seems like the Houndoom is kind of a range here. We might need the Pink Bow instead of the Charcoal in order to get this one to go. Even with the different held item, Umbreon is still a 2-hit KO here. Murkrow still seems to be a 1-hitter, so now we're just hoping that Return gets a better range here on this Houndoom. It does look like it's going to be a 2-hit KO now with the Pink Bow on, so that's what we're really aiming for. We just need to yet again get a run where we don't get the Sand Attack, or we manage to just hit everything in spite of having a Sand Attack on. This time we do manage to knock out the Houndoom, though. We're to the Vileplume, where we go Flamethrower and get a 1-hitter, and now Gengar, we go Flamethrower, it goes Spite and Spite again, but we managed to knock it out after that. So it took 18 attempts to get through Karen there. It was ultimately possible, but definitely not pretty. And now we're at the real ultimate challenge at the end of this one. I don't actually think that we have any way that we can beat Lance with our current setup. I think we have to add on Headbutt over Detect. I think that's our only play here, because we just don't really have any other good moves. We could add on Iron Tail as well, I guess. for specifically the Aerodactyl. I'm just not sure that anything else is really useful though. I mean, I guess we could go rest, sleep talk in a absolutely desperate situation, but honestly, that's about it. So I'm going to test this out, but this might actually not work. So just to test out ranges here on the first Gyarados, when we go return, it does about 40%. We will need at least one flinch here to get through this Pokemon. We do manage to get through on the first attempt, getting to level 47. Now out comes the Aerodactyl. It goes Rock Slide, does massive damage, and Flamethrower does nothing here. So the fact that we're slower than that Pokemon, I think only Iron Tail could potentially get us through. We'll throw that on over Sunny Day, and let's just see if this has any value or not. So here I'm going to try to flinch this first Gyarados. Obviously, after Rain Dance, Surf is just going to destroy us. We would just get wrecked on the next turn by the Aerodactyl. So there's no point in sitting and just waiting for that one play out. After we take that one down though, out comes the Aerodactyl. It hits Rock Slide and it just one hit KOs me that time. It's probably a range, but still it's not going to be a good range by any means. So we're just going to have to reset a few times here and hope we get the Rock Slide miss, but then we miss Iron Tail. And Iron Tail is not a one hitter here. It's a 2-hit KO. So we're going to simply lose there on that Aerodactyl. I see no way that we actually progress from this point, short of just some absolutely insane luck, because honestly on such low health, one of the Dragonites is going to knock us out. Now, there are 7 rare candies available in this section of the game, so the first thing that we should test before we just completely give up is how we do if we slam some of these rare candies, and I'm just going to use them all. I'm going to go up to level 57 here. We get to learn Crunch at this level, so I'm just going to go ahead and learn that move since it is a same type move that should do quite a bit of damage here. Let's just throw it on over Headbutt here for the sake of argument. So I'm going to save the game right here, and let's just see how this goes if we are effectively running some of our strongest same type moves. So here at level 53, we go return on the Gyarados. This appears to be a pure 2-hitter, which is very nice. Out comes Aerodactyl again. We are going to go for Crunch as we survive against that Rock Slide. It's going to be a 2-hit KO with that move. Let's see if Iron Tail does better for us there, since it does look like we should at least get to the Aerodactyl every single time. And here when we hit Iron Tail at this level, we do manage to get the 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. That now brings us to the first of the Dragonites, where return does only that much. We can try Crunch to see what it will do, but I don't think it's going to do enough to even get a 1-hitter if we get a crit. So yet again, this is probably not going to work out. We might reset for a run where we actually get a miss from Rock Slide just to see, but let's see the range first. Crunch with a critical hit does about 80% to the Dragonite, so it would be a 3-hit KO normally with this Pokemon. I think we have to have the Pink Bow so that we can get the 2-hit KO on Gyarados here, and honestly at that point, like, nothing is going to be super strong here against this Dragonite, so unless we could get some sort of miss, we simply could not win this battle. So let's do 2 more tests here before we completely give up. The first being, what happens if instead of having 0 DVs here, we have max DVs? If we come in at max DVs, we would have some updated stats. We can see we would now be up to 171 HP. Our attack's 147, our defense is 99, our special attack is 171, special defense is 135, and our speed is 151. This is important because I believe that means we'll now outspeed against the Aerodactyl if we just had max DVs on this Pokemon. So let's try this with max DVs at this point. We can stick with return on the Gyarados. We can see it's doing more like 60% now to that Pokemon. We do outspeed the Aerodactyl, so we can go for Iron Tail. We miss. If we miss, I'm just going to reset here. Here, when we hit Iron Tail, that is going to one-shot that Pokemon, bringing us to the first Dragonite on green health this time. We can go Crunch here on the Dragonite, and it appears to be a 2-hit KO as it goes for the Hyper Beam on me. We get a Hyper Beam miss from the second Dragonite, but after another Hyper Beam, we're on low health, and Charizard knocks us out with a Wing Attack. Still, at this point, we might be able to consider something like a Paralyzed Cure Berry instead to try to avoid avoid the paralysis from that Thunder Wave, and that may give us what we need because we could probably still just 2-hit KO on that first Gyarados. That's the only reason we have the pink bow to begin with in this one. Sure enough, it does appear we can, so we knock that Pokemon out. The strategy remains the same on Aerodactyl. Back to Dragonite, we crunch here. It goes Thunder Wave, but we get to recover the paralysis, knocking it out the next turn. That brings out the second of the Dragonites. We would need one of those to miss. We instead get a Hyper Beam miss, which is pretty good. That brings us to Charizard, where I think our best play is to just go Crunch here. It doesn't do that much with the Flamethrower. Now it goes Hyper Beam, and we just knock it out the next turn. Final Dragonite comes out. It goes Hyper Beam, and we get KO'd. If we could have survived there, though, we might have had a chance of actually winning this fight. And I think it all comes down to whether or not we get paralyzed by those two Dragonites. So 125% chance to get a miss, and one we can just recover with the Paralyzed Cure Berry. And if we can ever get that, we might actually win here. This time we get that miss, allowing us to get to the Charizard with no status. It goes Slash as we just knock it out the next turn with Return. We've made it to the final Dragonite. We do slightly less than half, but we get a special defense drop, and that allows us to finally win after 18 attempts on Lance. Now, my overlay still has 0 DVs set, so when we leveled up here, we actually went back down to 0 DVs, so we actually have lower stats after the level up. But what I hope you guys can appreciate from that is just how much stronger we become with max DVs. Max DVs versus 0 DVs is the difference between this Houndoom really having a reasonable strategy of getting through Lance or not getting through Lance. It's the difference between outspeeding the Aerodactyl or not outspeeding the Aerodactyl. And once you get that speed and you get the extra attack, you no longer need a pink bow here to two-shot against that first Gyarados. You can now just simply replace that with a Paralyzed Cure Berry, go for the luck to not get paralyzed, and at that point, you're basically good to go. Once you get through those two Dragonites, you just can get through the rest of the team with your attacking moves. Is it pretty? No, but it is possible, and that, I guess, is the moral of this one. But now before we move on in this one, I want to test out a couple more strategies that I didn't use previously that might have actually affected things here. So the first that I'm going to do, I'm going to try throwing on Sunny Day onto my Houndoom here, and I'm actually going to replace the move Flamethrower. Keep in mind we can get Fire Blast later on if we need it, and the point here is that Sunny Day is not to power up our fire type move. It's in order to make it so that we get hit less by Thunderbolt and we would take less damage if we do get hit by a Surf. Let's see if this actually helps us to get through though, because this was suggested by the channel member Pokemon WWW411 Mark II, who requested this run, and we'll just see if it actually makes that much of a difference. So I have reset everything to go back to level 46, which is where I was when I originally came into this one. We rebeat the league, and now I'm going to test this strategy against Lancey Boy. So in this setup, I'm actually going to go for Return first on the Gyarados. It's going to go Rain Dance. I'm going to follow with Sunny Day. We will still get hit by Surf, which does a decent amount of damage, but we can knock this Pokemon out the next turn. And now we're going to be less likely to get hit by something like Thunder. Still, we're outsped by the Aerodactyl here, and it simply destroys us with a single Rock Slide. So while yes, Sunny Day could help us in some contexts, it's not going to help us that much here because the whole point is really just that Aerodactyl's coming out to completely destroy us. Now, if we just go all in on attack on Gyarados so we get to Aerodactyl on full health, we could try to go for the Iron Tail now, but we can see that at level 46, the level we originally came here at, we both would not one-hit KO the Aerodactyl, and we just barely survive against a single one of its Rock Slides because we still do not outspeed here. And since we don't have any way to outspeed here, we're basically getting destroyed here no matter what we do. So we need to find a different way to get through this fight. However, there is one more strategy that I can think of here, which is I'm going to come in with Rest on the moveset. Here now, I can set up Sunny Day as I have been on the Gyarados. And we get it to very low health. It hyper beams, taking us to low health, but now we can use rest. And the benefit of rest here is that because I have a mint berry on, I can actually heal off the sleep immediately after using that move. And now I can just knock out this Gyarados and I'm on to the Aerodactyl. Here I will need a critical hit in order to one-shot this Pokemon, and I think that's the only way we can actually get through. So we're gonna just have to hope for that luck or to get the Rock Slide miss. Of course, we had to miss Iron Tail on the same turn, so we did not get through on this one, but that is a way that we could theoretically get through, and then maybe we outspeed and can use rest on the next Pokemon. Let's test this out a little bit more and see. Now, this strategy only works if we get a Hyper Beam from this Gyarados that does not one-shot us on turn 3. And it is a range here. It's not guaranteed that we will survive, but most of the time it does seem like we're in the range to survive here, so we can use rest in order to heal up to full health, and then just immediately knock the Gyarados out because of the Mint Berry. Now on the Aerodactyl, we're basically banking on either a critical hit or a miss from its Rock Slide, and we have to hit with our Iron Tail at least once. If we get the miss from Rock Slide turn 1, we can then also use Crunch turn 2 in order to knock this Pokemon out. Of course, if we get flinched, that's basically the end of this one though. Now here we finally get the critical hit on the Aerodactyl, and I actually managed to just 2-hit KO thanks to a crit on the Gyarados. So this is like the best luck we could ever get. We still have the Mint Berry on, and we can still use rest in order to heal up on the next Pokemon. That brings out the Dragonite, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go for my rest strat here in order to get my HP back. He goes Hyper Beam, which does massive damage. And now I can go Crunch and I will rest here, but the problem is we're probably going to get stuck in a loop because we're just taking so much damage from the Hyper Beam that there's no way for us to get through at this point. So just because you get through the Aerodactyl, even in the best case scenario, then does not mean that you're getting through this at level 46 when you come in. You level up to level 47 here, but it's just not enough. It's not going to be even close to what you need to actually get through this team. So at the end of the day, the rare candies being used was probably the only way to make this fight even reasonable here. So we're just going to have to move on with that as we go further in the game. So at the end of the day, I think we can say pretty definitively that the only way you're actually getting through this is with the rare candies. It helps the ranges, it gets you into a speed tie with that Aerodactyl, which is huge, and then you can actually manage to survive enough hits and deal enough damage with this all-attacking set that we were using previously to actually get this to go. Still, of course, it's not ideal as you go into the post-game that you're already down 6 rare candies here, but it's worth noting if we were in something like the medium slow level up group, we would probably already have all these extra levels and not actually be in that bad a shape in the post game. These slow level up Pokemon are just going to have really big issues in the late game due to the fact that they just don't gain as many levels. I actually think a Pokemon like Arcanine that is also slow level up will be better here, given that it's more physical attack focused, meaning that if it gets to the end with a move like Return on max power, it's going to do more damage to Lance's team than what we were doing with this Houndoom. But we still might be able to find a way to get through Red at the end, so let's just go ahead and get onto the SS Aqua and test this out. Of course, we've got a bunch of easy and rando fights to fight, so this shouldn't be too hard, but let's see how it actually goes. So first things first, we'll go take on Surgy Boy since I don't expect him to be terribly hard with this Pokemon, though who knows, because we don't have as much physical attack, he might actually be harder than I expect. So Surge attempt number 1, I'm just going to go Return on the Raichu since it has lower defense. That does get the 1-hit KO right there. When we get to the Electrode, its stats are a little more balanced, so I think Flamethrower will probably do the job. Sure enough, it does. We knock out the second Electrode as well. That's going to bring out the Electabuzz, which has far lower defense than special defense, so we're going to go back to Return here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but we will be able to knock this Pokemon out. He gets just stuck in a healing loop, and sure, he set up the Light Screen, but Magneton is weak against Flamethrower, so I think this move will still get the 1-hitter, and sure enough it does as we get to level 55. And now I think we just go straight up to Sabrina. It's not like we're scared of her in this one, given the fact that we're a dark type, so I think we're going to completely crush her on the first attempt, but let's just see. She of course leads off with Espeon. I will go for Crunch right here, getting the one-hit KO. That brings out Mr. Mime, where we will do more of the same, getting another one-hitter. And Alakazam, it only knows like psychic type attacking moves, so we're just gonna destroy it. And for once, Sabrina is an absolute cakewalk. If only Houndoom had been in Gen 1, it might have been the Sabrina killer in that generation. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fight against Erica, of course, just to complete the kind of immediate trainers that are super easy to get through with this Pokemon, since after all, Flamethrower should just destroy everything in the gym. So Erica, attempt number 1. Let's see how this goes. She's going to lead off with her Tangela. I'm going to go for the Flamethrower right here, completely destroying that Pokemon. Victory Bell comes out next. It can get a Flamethrower as well, going down in a single hit. That brings out Blossom. We'll just Flamethrower it while we're here just to get an easy KO there. And Jumpluff never stood a chance here. Yes, it does have higher special defense, but it does not matter as we easily Flamethrower her down. And so we make like Ash Ketchum and just burn down the Celadon gym in order to get another badge. And after completing the whole machine part quest, I am going to go north of Cerulean City just to fight all these randos. We'll gain like maybe 1 level here, but I'm going to have to put off Misty, I think, until pretty late just because of her type advantage against us. So I think we're going to be going down to Blaine and Janine first, then back to Brock, then back to Misty. I think that's going to be the best strategy for getting through here. Now I will just quickly fight Lightyear's boy here in Brock's gym just because I wanted to open up Pewter City, and it's an easy one-hit KO on that Pokemon. Still, I'm going to avoid fighting Brock himself at this point just because I do expect that his team's going to be pretty tough to get through. Iron Tail will help us on things like the Rhyhorn, the Graveler, and the Onix, but only be neutrally effective when we get to the 2 fossils. So I think that this is the best play, is actually just to go down south. We'll have a much better time against Blaine since he doesn't have anything strong against us. And Janine, we know, is a joke. Who knows? We might even end up taking on Blue before we take on Misty in this one or something like that, just because of the way that the teams work out. But we'll just have to see. Blue probably is pretty tough here. For now, though, let's come and take on Blaney Boy. I think we have everything we need to get through this, but let's just see how it actually works out. Blaine, attempt number 1 on the Mag Cargo. I'm just gonna go for the Crunch here. We get a nice one-hit KO. Magmar comes out next. It has higher special defense than defense, but I mean, we have higher special attack. I'm not sure what's actually best. Maybe Return. Here, it just barely misses a one-hit KO, and then we do knock that Pokemon out. Out next is the Rapidash. I don't think we have anything to fear here. We can just two-shot this Pokemon. It's not like Fire Blast is gonna do anything to us. He goes for the Max Potion, and it still doesn't matter. We just get him in a healing loop and beat him on the first attempt. And with that, I'm just going to go beat up on Janine real quick, and then we can actually get into something that's kind of a challenge here in the post game, since I'm pretty sure Janine's just going to be a bunch of one-hit KOs. So I'm not even thinking that I need to heal coming into this fight. Let's just come and stunt on Koga's protege. Of course, she's going to lead off with her Crobat. We're just going to go Flamethrower on this one and get an easy one-hit KO victory. Weezing comes out. It has lower special defense, so I think Flamethrower is still the play. Same for the second Weezing. Now she's going to bring out an Ariados, and the play is obvious, and all she's got left is Venomoth, which will get one-hit KO'd by Flamethrower. In spite of the fact that it's a psychic flying Pokemon, it still somehow is weak against our moves. So minor inaccuracy of not using Crunch there on the Venomoth, but I think it's forgivable given the fact that some people claim that it is a bug type Pokemon. But with that being done, I'm going to go back to Brocky Boy now, and let's just see if we can manage to get through him with a combination of the Iron Tail and Crunch, since I think that's going to be our best play against all of his Pokemon. So Brock, attempt number 1 on the Graveler. I mean, its special defense is so incredibly low that it might be better to go for Crunch, even though Iron Tail is super effective here. Let's just see what Crunch does. It does get the one-hit KO, so that's good enough for me. I think the same is true on the Rhyhorn, so we just knocked that one out in a single hit. Out comes the Amistar. It clearly has much lower special defense than defense, so we'll just Crunch and get the one-hitter there as we get to level 59. Onix comes out, gets Crunched, easy victory, and that brings out Kabutops, which never stood a chance. Crunch is the solution there. No need to mess around with Iron Tail strats when the opponents have high defense. So with that, we just have Misty and Blue. I'm going to go take on Misty here, and let's just see if the return strats are enough. At some point, we might even have to think about Curse in order to get through things just to deal more damage to enemy water types, but I'm going to go with my set as it is right now first just to see how this goes. So Misty, attempt number 1, she leads off with her Golduck. I'm going to go for Crunch on this one since its stats are very balanced and we have much higher special attack. Still, we did not one-shot that Pokemon. That makes me a bit nervous. Quagsire is out next. Its special defense is much lower though, so we do get the one-hit KO there. Now on the Lapras, Flamethrower is neutrally effective, so I'm going to go for this move. We get Rain Dance, which I think is perfectly fine. I'll just crunch it down from there. And now Starmie is at least weak to Crunch, so that's the play. We get the one-hit KO on that Pokemon. So Golduck was the only one that was actually a major threat there. Fortunately, we can get Rain Dance from the Lapras, otherwise we could have been in bad shape. But hey, we'll take it. We're moving on to Blue. So it's worth noting, we are on 0 DVs. This is the weakest possible Houndoom, and we are in minimum battles still, though we have burned 6 of our rare candies. We'll have 4 available to us as we go to Red, which is not likely to be enough, honestly, unless we start going for OP strats here. We might just be dead, but we won't know until we test everything out. So let's just get through this, starting with Blue himself. So first up on Blue, I'm just going to go in as I am with no shenanigans. Let's just see how this actually works out. On the Pidgeot, I'll go Flamethrower. This is going to be a 2-hit KO, but it just mirror moves, which doesn't really matter when we're using a move that we resist. Rhydon comes out next. I'm going to Crunch on this Pokemon, but then Earthquake just completely destroys me. Crunch was not going to be a 1-hit KO there, and because of its super high defense, I don't think that Iron Tail was going to one-shot there either. So here, I think we have to make a decision about how to progress at this point. So my first strat here is actually going to be to try a Solar Beam Sunny Day strat. So we'll come into this fight with Flamethrower, Crunch, Solar Beam, and Sunny Day. Sunny Day will power up 2 of our moves, and we'll still have Crunch to use against things like the Arcanine here. So maybe this is enough. Let's just test this one out and see. So here in this case, I'm going to set up Sunny Day turn 1. We get Wing attacked by Pidgeot, but I think that's fine. We'll just Flamethrower after that, getting the 1-hit KO. But now with the Rhydon coming out in the harsh sunlight, we can just use Solar Beam without any charging and get a 1-hit KO on that Pokemon as well. Gyarados comes out next, and this is where I'm honestly not sure what the best play is, since Solar Beam and Crunch are effectively the same power, but Crunch does have the ability to sometimes lower special defense. I'm going to go for the Crunch here. We get the special defense drop, and let's just see if we can get the KO. We just missed the KO range here with it surviving on 1 HP after the special defense drop. So there's a decent chance that we could get through this Pokemon with just a slightly higher damage roll. So that's what I'm going to go for here. And so that brings us back to the Gyarados. We Crunch. This time we do not get a special defense drop. So I think we go Sunny Day after it uses the Rain Dance. It missed Hydro Pump. So now Crunch is going to just be a 2-hit KO from here. He full restores on this Pokemon though. We get a special defense drop, but I'm going to set up Sunny Day again. He misses the Hydro Pump again. He survives one more Crunch, but we are going to knock him out on the next turn, and he is using his full restores here. So that might be the one benefit of this, is that he's missed a bunch of Hydro Pumps and he's used up all of his full restores. So we finally knocked that Pokemon out. Arcanine comes out next. I'm just going to start crunching on this Pokemon. He is, of course, using extreme speed to do quite a bit of damage to me, and he knocks me out in 3 hits, owing to the fact that we have really low defense. That's, I think, the only reason we lost there. Yet again, a critical hit probably gets us through. So we're just going to have to test this out a little bit more, but it might be worth wearing black glasses here just to get a better range with our Crunch. With that slight power up to our move, we might even be able to get the 2-hit KO on the Gyarados as long as we get a special defense drop. So I think this is the way to go. We once again get that special defense drop, and sure enough, we do 2-shot that Pokemon, bringing out the Arcanine. Our opponent still has all of his full restores, but we do have a stronger crunch here. We're just not going to be able to outspeed that extreme speed, but this looks like a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon, and sure enough, we take it down. Alakazam comes out and gets crunched, which is perfectly fine, and that brings out the Exeggutor, where we can just once again crunch here, getting a 1-hit KO. So the black glasses are the key to getting the victory there. I could have tried leftovers, etc. as well, but this seems to have worked out just fine. So on minimum battles, albeit with some rare candies used, we are going to be able to now move on to Red. Still, this might be the end of this one. Like, Red's Pokemon are just so incredibly high leveled compared to us that I don't know that we're actually going to be able to get this to go. Now, it's worth noting that we've used most of the physical moves that are available to our Pokemon in this run, and we only have the 4 rare candies available to us. So this could be a kind of tough situation. Like, I do think we want to go curse strats in certain situations here, but are we going to be able to reach the point of dealing enough damage to get through things? I honestly just don't know. The other possibility, of course, if we're faster than some opponents, will be to go for things like headbutt strats, but I'm not sure we're going to be fast enough due to the fact that we're in that slow level up group. I'm pretty sure that Pokemon like the Charizard have like 170 some odd speed, so this might already be impossible even if we wanted to go for like some headbutt flinch strats here. So we might just be in a really bad spot against Red. Still, I'm going to test this out. Let's just see how it goes, and then we'll slap on the rare candies after that. And then assuming that doesn't work, we're just going to have to investigate other strategies to get through here. So I'm going to come in once exactly as I am. I will go Sunny Day first. We'll lower the accuracy of Thunder here and then go for the Flamethrower, which just one-shots the Pikachu. So nice. We get to level 61 right there. We are in fact faster than Blastoise, and we've got Sunny Day set up. So we can go for Solar Beam here on the Blastoise, but it only does half. I'm going to set up Sunny Day after that as it goes for Surf. And then it looks like we're 2-hit KOing here with the Solar Beam. That brings us to the Espeon. It goes for Swift. It is faster than us, and there's nothing we can do. Crunch did not one-shot, so we simply go down to that Pokemon. Now I'm going to drop the rare candies here, and I'm going to swap out the black glasses for the leftovers. And let's just see if that makes any impact on this section of the run. So Tale from the future here, quick note about the rare candies. I, for some reason, completely forgot that I had used 7 rare candies back when I was up against Lance, thinking that I had used only 6. So when I opened my bag and I only had 3 rare candies in there, I was sure that I had just forgotten to pick up one of them back in Johto, and I didn't want to go all the way back there. So I simply used Game Hook to give me the other rare candy that I thought I hadn't used. So this is a little bit not legit. We actually would have only had level 63 here going into this, not level 64. We could have, of course, still dropped some vitamins. Each of our stats could have taken 2 vitamins at this point, making it at least possible to go for that strategy. But basically, take the results with a little bit of a grain of salt and understand again, when we come back here in the main minimal battle series, we will have already been on max DVs through the entire Elite Four and through this entire section. So we might have found a way to get through 1 level lower or something like that. We'll just have to see when we actually get there. But for now, just take that caveat as we get into the rest of the Red fight. So once again against Pikachu, it goes Charm here, which doesn't really matter. We're only running special moves. So we'll go for Sunny Day. He Charms again. Yet again, we don't really care. We'll just knock that Pokemon out. Blastoise comes out now in the Harsh Sunlight. We can go for Solar Beam here as it goes for the Rain Dance. We'll follow up again with our Sunny Day. So we take about half, but we get the leftovers this time, so we get to knock that Pokemon out and get some passive healing. Now on the Espeon, I'm going Crunch since it's super effective. We get a special defense drop. It goes for Reflect, but that's perfectly fine by me. Snorlax is out next. I'm just going to Flamethrower on this Pokemon, hoping we get a burn or something, but Body Slam just completely destroys me at that point, even from about half health. I think anything less than a burn on this Pokemon would basically be game over for us. Now, of course, Espeon using Reflect really doesn't matter to us here because of the fact that we're only using special moves, so that didn't affect that last fight at all. The issue here is entirely that even with a critical hit with our strongest move, Flamethrower, we're only doing a little more than half to the Snorlax because it's just such a tank of a Pokemon. And yes, it has lower defense than special defense, but since we're only running special moves, we have no way to take advantage of that. This time we even get the burn, but on such low health, we're simply going down. Now, it's possible that we could get a critical hit on the Blastoise, allowing us to one-shot and get through with better health here. So that's some luck that I will try to get, at least just to see how it actually works out. But the only real advantage there is getting us to the Espeon with more HP. Now, another strategy that we can try is to once again go for Rest and Mint Berry on our Houndoom. And if we can manage to somehow get through the first two Pokemon on really high health and then knock out the Espeon with Flamethrower, we could then use the Rest strat against the Snorlax on the basis that it would simply allow us to heal up there in that fight all the way and then immediately wake up with the Mint Berry. So I'm going to test this out and just see if it gives us some way of getting through on minimum battles. Now, it's worth noting that you do have to set up Sunny Day to guarantee a one-hit KO on the Pikachu with Flamethrower, and obviously you would want that already set up when you get to the Blastoise. And no matter what, Espeon is a two-hit KO even with the Flamethrower here. And now on the Snorlax, I'm going to go for the Rest strat here. It body slams, doing well over half, so it's clear that we're going to get wrecked here no matter what at our current level, just because our defense is so incredibly low. And honestly, I'm just struggling to think of a combo that we can use with Curse here somehow in order to try to get an advantage, since everything is just doing so much damage to us early on. Still, I'm going to try it at least one time, just because if we can somehow survive more hits from that Snorlax, in theory, we would reach a point where we could actually manage a win here, but I'm just not super confident in getting through. Still, we don't know until we test it, so let's see. So here, I'm still just going to lead off with Sunny Day against the first Pikachu and then try to knock it out from there. And we have to keep the Solar Beam on, I think, no matter what, because we have to have a way to get through this Blastoise, because I don't think we can start setting up Curse here and be slower than this Pokemon. Still, we managed to knock that one out, and now maybe on Espeon, since it is only going Swift against us, we can start setting up Curse. It goes Reflect turn 1 even, and maybe with enough defense, we'll just reach a point where we heal back all the damage from its Swift. Now we can once again set up Sunny Day and then start going into our Flamethrowers to knock this Pokemon out. Of course, if it ever gets a critical hit against us though, we're simply dead because there's nothing we can do at that point. Still, maybe we can replace Solar Beam with something else, provided that we have a strong physical move. And the only strong physical move I can think of that we can learn at this point would be something like Sludge Bomb. Because as far as I can recall, I think you still have to recharge from Hyper Beam after knocking out an opponent in this generation. So it's not like we could go Curse Hyper Beam strats in order to get through, but let's just see if Sludge Bomb in the place of Solar Beam is enough to get us through here. I'm honestly not sure. Now, the problem here is that if you try to set up on the Pikachu, you get in this situation where either you get Charmed, which is just terrible for this strategy anyway, but if he just manages to hit 2 Thunders, you're already dead. We just don't have the defensive stats that we need to actually get through here. And if you go for Sunny Day, he just has a higher chance of going for Thunderbolt, it seems, at that point. So he still knocks you out in like 3 hits with Thunderbolt. So I'm not saying it's impossible to get through the Pikachu here while setting up the Curse. I'm just saying it's very, very unlikely from the looks of things. And if you don't get to the Blastoise on high health, it's simply going to knock you out. I think in most cases, it might still go for the Rain Dance 1 turn, but honestly, that's not really what we're looking for here. So honestly, I think we just have to back up here, but the only other real try I think we have is to teach the move Fire Blast over Flamethrower, and then to PP up that move so that we have more PP to use with it, and see if between that, Sunny Day, Solar Beam, and Crunch, we can find a way through here. I'm going to try to go in with the leftovers and just have as much coverage with my moveset as possible in this one. Let's just see if we can get this to go or not. Here, of course, Fire Blast will just one-shot the Pikachu, bringing us to the Blastoise, and this is the spot where I think we need a critical hit in order to one-shot this Pokemon with the Solar Beam. Anything less than that, and I think we're just in bad shape here against this Pokemon, because it's going to do about half of our health every single time. When we get to Espeon now, though, Fire Blast is technically our strongest move, but it does not not quite get the one-hit KO here, so we are going to take at least one hit from that Pokemon. Snorlax comes out, we are faster here, and of course we didn't even get to see the range because we missed the Fire Blast. Now it's worth noting that a critical hit Solar Beam does not necessarily one-shot the Blastoise, but because we're faster, we'll just be able to knock it out on the next turn, so that's what that all comes down to. Now on the Espeon, Fire Blast will do not that much because the Sunny Day wore off apparently. With Sunny Day on, it's a 2-hit KO. And now back to the Snorlax here, where Fire Blast with Sunny Day set up and a critical hit takes it down to 86 HP remaining, so Body Slam still one-shots us. But here, before I finish this one out, I'm going to test two things. I'm going to test what happens if we come here on max DVs, and I'm going to test what would happen if we just pumped this Pokemon full of vitamins. But I'm going to try the max DVs first since it's the simplest one. We can see that our stats here have increased significantly. I have the raw stats on screen now, and the stats that show on the left side include the badge boosts from the various badges, but we're now up to having effectively 182 attack, 123 speed, 210 special attack. I'm not sure if that special defense badge boost is actually going to come in at this point, so I'm not sure if that's going to be legit. Our raw special defense is 149, and we have 187 speed. So I think we're going to outspeed basically everything here. Let's just see how this goes now. So starting off with the Pikachu, we are faster, so now we can set up Sunny Day. It misses Charm, and outside of its quick attack, it's never going to hit us first, so we simply knock that Pokemon out. Now we get to the Blastoise, where I'm sure a critical hit from Solar Beam will be a one-shot, but let's see what we do with just a normal hit here. We did pretty well. Let's see if Crunch gets us anywhere close. It does not, so we're going to still get knocked out after that if we do not get the critical hit. Still, it looks like we have much better odds of getting through the first two Pokemon without taking too much damage at least, so I'm going to keep testing this one out just for a minute. We do manage to knock out the Blastoise here. We get to Espeon, which we outspeed. Let's see what Crunch does at this point. It's still not a one-hit KO, but it's going to be a two-hitter here. So easy KO there. Snorlax comes out. Now let's see what the ranges are with our Fire Blast. Well, we didn't get a C, but it goes for Amnesia here, which tells me that we're probably not getting one-hit KO'd. Of course, Body Slam has to paralyze us after that though, so we're going down without seeing the ranges. This time I'm going to try Fire Blast on Espeon, and it just barely misses the one-hitter with the Sunny Day setup. But now back to Snorlax. Fire Blast at this point does about half. It goes for Amnesia against us. We're going to Fire Blast it again as it goes for Rest. Now let's set up the Sunny Day here. And sure, we're going to take snore damage while it sleeps, but we're at least giving ourselves a chance of possibly getting through here. Though I think Amnesia is basically the perfect play against us there. We're going to have to get better luck than that, I think, to get through. So back to Snorlax again here with the Fire Blast. We would love a critical hit here. We get the burn on the Snorlax this time, which is kind of good. I'm going to go for Crunch, hoping that we can manage some sort of special defense drop, as it does go for Rest here. Unfortunately, we got paralyzed, which is affecting things here quite a bit because we're going to not be able to deal enough damage and miss too many turns after it rests. Still, I think a critical hit might get the job done on Snorlax, so at this point I do think it's worthwhile to sit here and reset a few times just to see. And after testing this for quite a while, I'm just not getting the luck to get this to work, but I think one more strategy does exist here, which is to add on Headbutt, and I'm going to put this on over Crunch. And honestly, it will give us at least some physical coverage against some of the Pokemon that have lower defense, as well as allowing us to get flinches that might allow us to get through in a tough spot. So I'm just going to test this out and see if maybe adding Headbutt over Crunch is actually the strategy to get through here. Still, I think then we have to not get a Charm from the Pikachu, so we're really hoping for exactly that, a Thunder Miss, so that we can just knock this Pokemon out. Now against Blastoise, we'll go for Solar Beam, but if we don't get the one-hit KO, I'm actually going to try to use Headbutt to flinch this Pokemon, and then we might be able to get through even with the Rain Dance setup, especially when you consider that we have leftovers on, so every turn that our opponent can't hit us is another turn that we could potentially heal damage back. I think this strategy might actually significantly increase our chances of winning. And sure enough, all we need is one flinch from that Blastoise after we manage to hit the first Solar Beam, and we can knock it out in 2 hits. So now I'll go Sunny Day here against the Espeon as it goes Reflect. Obviously, that is one of the issues with this Headbutt strat, but we can knock it out with the Fire Blast after that. We'll go Fire Blast on the Snorlax, of course, but now we can even try to Headbutt to get flinches. We get a nice crit there as well. And sure, Reflect is up right now, but if we can get rid of the Reflect, Headbutt should start doing significantly more damage, and again, giving us the chance to flinch our opponents. We might just be able to find a way through here. Now, of course, the ideal is going to still be to use Solar Beam to knock out this Blastoise, just so that we already have the Sunny Day set up later to deal more damage. So I'll try this strat as I've been doing so far, and then Fire Blast on the Espeon to get the one-hit KO on that Pokemon. Fire Blast here, turn 1 on the Snorlax. We get the burn this time, which is perfect. Now, yet again, I'm going to start headbutting to flinch this Pokemon here if possible, and it looks like we will in fact get through. That brings us to the Charizard, which we are faster than here. So I'm going for Headbutt as it goes for Wing Attack here. We're really hoping to get some flinches. We get a nice flinch there, and every flinch would allow us to heal a little bit. Of course, Wing Attack as a same type move being buffed in this generation is going to do pretty good damage, so there's nothing we can do about that, but we've at least made it to Charizard for the first time in this challenge. Back to Snorlax again, where we once again get the burn turn 1, and that's going to allow us to simply knock that Pokemon out. Charizard comes out, we're going to headbutt it. It flinches turn 1, headbutt, flinches turn 2, headbutt, it now goes Wing Attack, but we get another flinch, and that's going to be enough to get through that Pokemon, bringing us to the final Venusaur, where we are going Fire Blast. It's going for the Solar Beam here, but I don't think that's a big deal. When we hit the Fire Blast, it does a one-hit KO. So like that, we did manage to beat Red on minimum battles. However, it required max DVs. We had to go for headbutt flinches, and we had to get a lot of them. We have to burn against that Snorlax to get that one to go. Otherwise, Body Slam does way too much damage. And that's kind of the long and short of this Pokemon. Like, yes, it can beat the game on minimum battles. Is it pretty? No. Now, in the main minimum battle series, where we're going to play the entire game with max DVs, things might turn out just a little bit differently, because against Lance, with max DVs at level 46, we're adding probably around 12 to 13 points to every single one of our stats, which is pretty on par with adding a bunch of rare candies there. So it could be that in the main minimum battle series, we find a way to get through Lance without using rare candies, or at least without using that many of them. And then we would have more rare candies here against Red, allowing us to get to a higher level. That could affect things. At this point in the game, just a couple levels can be the difference between a fight that's reasonable and a fight that's completely unreasonable. So here, as we finish this one out, let's just put the final pin in it by saying that 0 DVs on minimum battles is not at least reasonably possible with a Houndoom. You're gonna have to go max DVs to have any real shot, and even then, you're gonna have to dig into a lot of different strats to get through things here, including picking up another Sunny Day, including picking up Headbutt again in order to use at the end of the game. Who knows, maybe yet again we could find a strategy where we still have Return at this point and can deal more damage that way, but that's the best that I could figure out in the short time that I was here playing Houndoom today. Otherwise, I think you're grinding a bunch more levels to make this Pokemon consistent. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Later.